to the Changelog episode 0.4.4. I'm Adam Stacoviak.
And I'm Wynn Netherland. This is the Changelog. We cover what's fresh and new in the world of open source. If you found us on iTunes, we're also on the web at thechangelog.com. We're also up on GitHub.
Head to github.com/explore. You'll find some training repos, some feature repos from our blog, as well as the audio podcasts. If you're on Twitter, follow Changelog Show and our new Twitter handle, Changelog Jobs. And I'm Adam Stack.
And I'm Penguin, Pengwynn. Talked to Aaron Patterson this week, a.k.a. Tinder Love.
Yeah, tenderlovemaking.com. Did you guys talk about Tinder lovemaking?
No, not in that context. We talked about committing to Ruby Core, which he's a Ruby committer. His mini gems. He's got quite the repo list out on the GitHub. And the rubycommitters.org that he's currently crowdsourcing for design help to list all of the committers to the Ruby language.
Wow, very cool. Sounds like fun.
Hey, you want to get buzzed at work?
I don't know, maybe.
Not talking about alcohol or even caffeine. We're talking about buzzed.com. Drop the E before adding the D. Your City Real Time. They're looking for Go developers, JavaScript, Cappuccino, Cocoa, and even PHP.
And if you'd like us to feature your job on the show, head to thechangelog.com/jobs to get started. When posting, select Advertise on the Changelog and we'll take care of the rest. If you're a job seeker or someone who's interested in jobs that relate to open source, we'll be posting interesting GitHub jobs that embrace open source to our new Twitter handle, Changelog Jobs. Special thanks to Kevin Miller, a.k.a. Kev M, on Twitter for his great feedback. We really appreciate it.
Let's talk to James Edward Gray about the upcoming Red Dirt RubyConf in April.
Let's do it.
This week's show is sponsored by Red Dirt RubyConf, the second annual Ruby conference in Oklahoma City. Joined today by one of the organizers, James Edward Gray II. James, why don't you tell us a little bit about the conference?
Red Dirt is our attempt to do Ruby conference programming in unusual ways that people have never seen it done before. So one thing we did last year and we're doing again this year is to divide the conference into pre-selected topics that we think are currently interesting to people. And this year's topics will be Ruby implementations, Rails APIs and extensions, cloud services, and JavaScript.
Who's keynoting?
We will have Aaron Patterson from AT&T Interactive and Dr. Nick from Engine Yard.
The conference is upcoming April 20th through the 22nd. Where can they go to find more information?
The reddirtrubyconf.com.
Be sure and check it out. We're chatting today with Aaron Patterson, a.k.a. Tinder Love, on GitHub and other social networks. So, Aaron, for those outside the Ruby community, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Aaron Patterson. I go by Tinder Love online pretty much everywhere. I work on many different Ruby projects. Probably I'm most famous for one that I work on with Mike D'Alessio called Nokogiri, which is an XML and HTML parsing library, but I have a myriad of other projects too.
Cool. So Tinder Love, where did that come from?
It came from my blog, tenderlovemaking.com, and basically the way I got that is I was hanging out with a bunch of my girlfriends, and they were talking about,
Girlfriends plural?
Friends that are women.
Okay.
And they're talking about, what's the grossest thing a guy can ever say to you? And my one friend was like, if he says, I want to make tender love to you, that would be the grossest. So I registered the domain name. I had to. I was laughing so hard. I registered the domain name and then sent it to her the next day.
Well, the next question that I wanted to ask, the very first time that I saw you on Twitter or GitHub was, is that your real hair?
Yes.
So
can we edit this part out? Do I have to say this?
As with all our segments, we'll have to judge the entertainment value of it.
Okay, so That is up to the viewer to decide.
but it's your online persona nonetheless, right?
Right. Yes.
Well, it fits very nicely with. It seems like your taste in music. You had a tweet this weekend that was hot linking.
Yes.
Set
Yes.
to hot blooded, I guess.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, getting into the Ruby, so Nokogiri is probably what you're most famous for. You also have Mechanize and some others out there. But you're most recently, I guess, in October, you joined the Ruby core team, right?
Yeah, October 2009, a little
Wow.
over a year ago.
You know, and I read that timestamp. I can't believe it's 2011 already. So yeah, it's been over a year now. But so what's it like being a Ruby committer?
It's all right. It's more, I don't know, it's probably more strict than any other project I've worked on. I mean, it's definitely the biggest open source project I've worked on before. So, I don't know. It's got its own challenges compared to the other projects I work on, for sure.
So that leads me to rubycommitters.org. So here's how I think this went down. You know, you wanted to tell the ladies that you're a Ruby committer, and they're like, "What's that?" And then there's just no page to demonstrate your Ruby prowess, right?
No, not at all. I came up with this. Because Yugui, who is the branch manager for Ruby 192. She maintains a list of all of the Ruby core committers, but apparently, like, in Japan, it's not legal to hotlink images, and so she couldn't make a page that listed all the Ruby core committers, and I don't know. I'm not sure about the legality here in the United States, but I figure if I get any cease and desist, I can just take it down, right? So I decided we should put together a website for it, at least.
Yeah, I mean, especially for folks that are so critical to getting everybody's favorite language out the door with relative speed. You know, I think that deserves their own page. But so a little light on the CSS I'm seeing.
Yeah,
I understand there's some sort of contest going on to style this thing.
Yeah. So basically, what the deal is I might be able to code okay, but I can't style myself out of a wet paper bag. So I decided to put up just give it the most basic markup possible, and then I wanted to run a contest basically to just get people excited about it and get people to submit designs and stuff. And so far it's been, I mean, I've only had the contest up for a day, and I've already got a handful of really awesome entries.
So what'd you build it with?
It is built on Rails, of course.
All the way with Rails, no Sinatra or?
No. I mean, I am lazy, and building the app with Rails was very easy, so I just did it.
So how long have you been slinging Ruby?
I started programming Ruby in 2005, I think. Yeah, around 2005 is when I started programming Ruby. I just did it as a hobby at first, though. My first professional experience was probably, 2006 or 2007, something like that.
So how did you get into the Ruby language? Via Rails, like most of us, or other avenues?
Well, actually, the way I started out with it was, so I used to be a Perl programmer.
No.
And yes, I did. And I loved being a Perl programmer. It was really fun. I liked dynamic languages. And then I was basically forced to become a Java programmer. So I was a Perl programmer before the first .com bubble. And the bubble collapsed, and basically it was like, okay, you need to become a Java programmer or, go find a new job. So I was like, all right, I'll become a Java programmer. But missed dynamic languages while I was a Java programmer, and I kept waiting for Perl 6, and kept waiting and waiting, and it didn't come. Well, then it hadn't come, and I learned about Ruby, and I was like, this is exactly what I was waiting for, and just started programming Ruby. A little later, I learned about Rails. So I guess I was not introduced to Ruby via Rails.
Nokogiri, I think, is one of those that the first time I saw it was just as a dependency for almost every other gem that I was installing at the time. Why don't you give folks some background on what this gem does?
Sure. Nokogiri is a library for parsing XML and HTML. It's pretty fast. It's now 3 years old. It's built on top of libxml2. I don't know. I can give you more history about it. I don't know.
What were you building at the time? You need to scrape some stats off of a fantasy football site or something like that?
Yeah, no, I was basically what happened was I was maintaining a mechanized gem. So this all leads back to how I learned Ruby. Pretty much is when I started learning Ruby, I decided to start porting libraries from Perl over to Ruby. And one of the things that I used a lot in Perl was mechanize, and I found somebody had already written a mechanized gem. But I found tons of bugs in it, and that eventually just led to me taking over the gem. Unfortunately, back then, the backend for mechanize used REXML. REXML is the XML library that ships with Ruby. It's a pure Ruby XML parsing library. But lots of people complained that was really slow. So eventually I switched the backend to Apricot by Y, and that was working really well, but I started getting bugs. People were reporting bugs against Mechanize, and the bugs ended up being parser bugs in Apricot, and I had a really hard time fixing the bugs in Apricot, so I ended up just submitting failing test cases and stuff. And unfortunately, those didn't get taken care of, and people kept complaining to me about the bugs, so I started taking a look at libxml2 because it contains an HTML parser, and I found that actually libxml2's HTML parser did the right thing where all of these people were reporting bugs, and that's how I started working on Nokogiri.
So for the uninitiated, Mechanize is pretty much if you have a website, you have an API type of setup?
Yeah. It's basically a library where if you have a website and you need an API for the website, you can use Mechanize. So it's really good for Mechanize is really good for, let's say you have mainly like password protected websites or some sort of website where you have to fill out forms and do navigation, things like that.
So moving from Perl to Ruby, you mentioned one of the ways that you learned Ruby was to port libraries from Perl, and I think that happens in every community. It happens now with in Node.js. You see a lot of guys coming from other communities, and there's a hole in the library that needs to be filled, and so they start porting their knowledge from other languages, and sometimes that fits, and sometimes it doesn't. What differences between not just the syntax, but also the culture of Perl to Ruby did you find?
Well, honestly, I found testing in Ruby to be much easier than it was in Perl. I've been out of the Perl community for a really long time, so I don't know what it's like. I don't know what it's like today, but back then, testing was not really as encouraged as it is in the Ruby community.
And now it's like a rite of passage. You're not a Ruby developer unless you've written your own test library, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
What's your favorite?
I guess, right now, my favorite now is Minitest. Actually, that is my favorite testing library.
Why so?
Well, it's very fast. It's very flexible, And also, I work with the author, so whenever I run into problems, I can just be like, "Hey, help."
What's your favorite feature or two from 192?
Oh boy, my favorite feature is the speed. I don't know. I mean, I guess I really like 192. I really like 192 because of the speed, obviously, but then also kind of selfishly, I like it because there's a couple libraries that ship with 192 that I wrote. So I like using my own software.
Which are those?
I wrote Psych, which is a new YAML parsing library, and then I wrote Fiddle, which is a wrapper around libffi.
So tell the listeners about Texticle.
Texticle was a stupid hack that I did, and a very stupid hack that I did, and apparently people seem to use it. All it is a wrapper around...
Well, it's got such a fun name.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of embarrassed about the name now.
A guy named Tenderlove creates a library called Texticle. What's not to love?
Yeah. What is the world coming to? All it is a wrapper around Postgres's T-Search APIs. So Postgres ships with full text search on, and I was building the Nokogiri documentation website, and I wanted to put it on Heroku, and I wanted people to be able to search my documentation. And I found that Heroku uses Postgres for their databases on the back end, and I found that I could just use Postgres's full text search capabilities. And I wasn't too happy with the existing T-Search plugins, so I wrote my own called Texticle, and it has a very similar interface to like Thinking Sphinx or something. So I mean, that's all it is. It's I don't know. I probably wrote it in like a few hours. It is a very easy hack.
So where does Tenderlove apply his skills for hire these days?
I work for AT&T Interactive. They make yellowpages.com.
So that's got to be like a enthralling Thanksgiving conversation. So, Mom, I'm coding the phone book.
Well, that's not actually what I do. That's not actually what I do for them. But it is difficult to explain my job. So what I do for AT&T Interactive is I work on Rails all day for them. Basically, I am an open source developer for AT&T Interactive.
So do you find yourself having to contribute to or having the privilege to commit to Ruby as part of your day job, or is this just something you do on the side?
No, this is my day job.
So you're going to be keynoting at Red Dirt RubyConf coming up, I guess, in April?
Yes, I am.
Picked a topic yet?
No, I have not. Do you have any suggestions?
How I just gave up and learned to love Ruby.
Yeah. I should talk about something like that. Yeah, I'm not
the
sure.
The art of tender lovemaking. I think that's what everybody wants to know.
I should do that. That would be funny. Yeah, I don't know what to talk about. Honestly, like it takes me forever to come up with talks. Like I work a lot on the talks I give, so I don't know. Believe me, I've been thinking about it every day. So
do you know James Edward Gray personally?
Personally, I guess I've met him.
How many times have you installed Faster CSV?
I have no idea. More times than I can count.
Well, you guys are pretty tight.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Do you find it in the Ruby community, and maybe you can shed some light on this if you've been around longer than I have? I think I joined the community in 2006, late 2006 or so. But a lot of times, someone says a name of a Ruby dev, and I'm like, I don't think I know them. And then they start rattling off the list of gems. Like, hey, I know that guy,
Oh, yeah. That happens to me all the time. Absolutely.
So do people approach you as the Nokogiri guy?
Yeah, either Nokogiri guy or Tenderlove, I think. But that's probably unique to me because Nobody has a nick like that.
So is your family aware of your online persona? I mean, and wouldn't your number, like if you ever did your own consulting shop, wouldn't your number have to be a 900 number?
Probably.
You could make money off people, calling you. Otherwise, what would be toll free?
I think so. Yeah. I don't think my family knows about my online persona. If they do know, then I don't know that they know.
What kind of car do you drive?
I don't drive. I work at home.
Say, I just totally see you driving around in like a El Camino.
Oh, I would love to. Either an El Camino or probably my dream car would be like an IROC Z or a Firebird with T-tops.
T-tops. So what are you working on these days? What's got you excited that you just want to play with?
Well, right now, I've been mainly focusing on speeding up Rails, trying to refactor active record mostly. I'm not sure if it's a lot of yak shaving. I'm excited. I have ideas in mind for what it will be in the future, but right now on a day-to-day basis, it's not actually super exciting. Once I get it to be where I want it to be, then I think it'll be very exciting.
Performance or syntax changes or?
A little bit of both. Mainly right now it's performance, but really what my goals are is I want to keep API and syntax pretty much the same, but my goal is that as I refactor under the hood and improve the design under the hood, that new features will just fall into place, right? Like the new features or better syntax or whatever will be a side effect of better architecture under the hood.
So a lot of innovation went into Arrow and the latest active record in Rails 3. Played with NoSQL much, or are you still a relational sort of dude?
Yeah, I dabble with NoSQL. I play with NoSQL. One of my coworkers is really into graph databases and graph technology, and so I do a lot of work with him, and it's pretty interesting. He works on he mainly works in Java, but with things like Neo4j and graph stores rather than document stores.
Old Cogity programmers used to put SQL right there in the presentation layer. That's the way it was, and we liked it. But we've got all these newfangled wrappers and indirection now for SQL. Do you think that's important for young developers to give them more of a safety scissors than a razor blade?
I don't know. I think it's important. It's important, in my opinion. It's important that people understand SQL. Some of the things that concern me are that I understand that it's nice to have a higher level wrapper, like better APIs to generate these SQL statements. But at the end of the day, that's pretty much all you're doing is generating these SQL statements that go to your database. And if you don't understand how those work, probably you can't leverage the top end as well. I would like to see people get less afraid of SQL and understand it more.
I was looking at your commits, and they're all Arrow for the last, as far as the eye can see. So seeing if there's somewhere else to go with what you've been working on.
Let's see, what else have I been working on? I can tell you what I'm doing with Arrow. Currently Active Record does a lot of string generation in the back end. The problem with that is there's a few problems with that. Like, one of the problems is performance. So what's happening is, like, sometimes you'll have to look up, it's creating a raw string that it's just going to send, a chunk of SQL that it's going to eventually concatenate together and then send to the database. But the problem is, every time you make these chunks of SQL, you'll have to go look up the database connection and in order to do quoting. And looking up the database connection incurs cost, right? So basically what I'm trying to do is defer that database connection lookup until the very last possible minute, so that we only have to look up the database connection once. So you gather together all the things that you want to turn into a SQL statement, and then we just use one connection to quote all of them and then send them off to the database. So that's recently, that's really what I've been focusing on.
So as a gem developer, and especially a developer of a very popular gem in Nokogiri, where are we in the adoption of Ruby 1.9 and the gem ecosystem as a whole?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I mean, at work, we don't. Well, no, that's not true. We run 1.9 in production at work, but not all of our applications use 1.9. I can tell you that I'm getting a lot more, not necessarily bug reports, but support questions. And, whenever people ask me for support, I say, well, what's your version number? And I can tell you that more frequently I'm getting people who are asking questions on 1.9. So it's adoption is definitely picking up a lot more than 1.9.1 for sure.
Recently, this weekend, and I need to look up the name, but the gentleman that managed the Ruby install for Debian basically said he was no longer going to do it.
Yeah, Lucas.
Lucas, what's your take on Ruby installs on Unix platforms and Linux platforms as opposed to RVM and some of the other install mechanisms?
Well, I don't really use RVM, but it's not because I have a problem with RVM at all. It's mainly just because of, since I am a Ruby developer, I spend a lot of time compiling and running out of Subversion. So that's just my use case. And it's a very, tiny, tiny use case. But as far as packaging is concerned, the problem that happened here in this case is that the Debian release, the way that they do releases or the way that they release packages is just different than the way we do it on Ruby core. And the Debian folks came to us and said, you need to do your releases this way. And we said, no, we do it the way we want to do it. And so I don't know. It depends on your opinion.
It seems like Lucas also had a hang up with a lot of the, mailing lists are still Japanese, even though that, we've got a worldwide adoption of Ruby now. Do you have any problems, keeping up to speed with the language? I'm assuming you don't speak Japanese, but that may be presumptuous.
Well, I do speak Japanese, actually.
Do you?
Yes. The thing is, it's kind of interesting because I'm on the Japanese list too. I watch the Japanese list and I also watch the English list, and I don't know. There is no truth to rumors about decisions being made on the Japanese list that nobody knows about. The thing is, most of the times the conversations that I read on the Japanese list are very I've got a bug with blah blah blah, very mundane emails. Most of the difficult decisions are made on the English list. I think the problem is that just Japanese to Westerners is very inaccessible, right? You look at the language and you're like, oh crap, I have no idea what's going on. So I think it's more just fear, maybe, or something.
So being able to speak Japanese, did you learn it after you picked up Ruby or vice versa?
I learned it after I picked up Ruby. I decided to learn it because I wanted to be able to communicate better with the Rubyists in Japan. I knew it came from Japan. I knew that there was all this documentation. I found all this documentation in Japanese, and I was just like, I wish I could read this. So I decided to start learning it.
So then I take it you've attended Ruby Kaigi?
Yeah, several times. 3 times I think I've been. Yeah.
And how's it compared to RubyConf?
Well, It's kind of funny. Last year they said that I think this is very true that Ruby Kaigi isn't actually a Ruby conference; it's a C conference disguised as a Ruby conference.
I could see that.
That like there are a lot more hacks. Like I see a lot more hacks on the VM. It's not there. You see a lot more Rails presentations here in the US at RubyConf, not so much there. But I don't know. I really enjoy both conferences a lot. I really do.
So then we'll have to get your impression of Red Dirt RubyConf. Will this be your first one?
Yes, it will be my first one.
Ever been to Oklahoma City at all?
No, but I hear that there is good barbecue.
Excellent barbecue.
I'm looking forward to that.
Play your cards right. Might even have a tornado or two. Nice dust storm.
I would enjoy that too. Well, at least watching, as long as I can do it from the comfort of indoors.
Yeah, Oklahoma City's got a nice tech scene for a Midwestern town, outside of Silicon Valley or a major population center. But Oklahoma City is growing and has its own, I guess, NBA team now. And,
oh, really?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Did not know that. So should be fun times. Red Dirt RubyConf is in April 21st through the 23rd. So you mentioned Perl and Ruby. Any other languages that you've picked up or want to pick up?
Lately, I've been doing a lot of Scheme, but I am very interested in Haskell too. So I think that'll probably be the next language I'm going to play with after I get done with my Scheme bender. How's that?
There you go. So Haskell, so CoffeeScript appeal to you at all?
I think it's interesting, but I haven't programmed in it that much.
I've been hooked on it lately. It seems like every JavaScript project I've picked up that I'm coding on by myself has been a CoffeeScript joint.
Yeah, it looks interesting. Like it looks like it would be a lot more fun to write than JavaScript.
Who in the Ruby community would you want to pair program with?
I would love to pair with... I'm trying to think of somebody I haven't paired with before that I would love to pair with. Probably I would love to pair with Jim Weyrich.
That'd be a nice pair.
Yes, I think so.
Maker of Rake, for those that might not know.
Jim would be an excellent person to pair with.
That's what you need to do is start up a promiscuous pairing service at Tinder Lovemaking where people can pay to pair programming with you.
Yeah. I remember, what was it? I think was it RailsConf? Some conference I went to where it was like, you get to pair with a famous person or something like that. And I really wanted to enter because Jim was one of the people you could pair with. But I guess I missed the entry deadline or something.
Cool. Let us know what topic you choose for Red Dirt RubyConf. We'll see you in Oklahoma City in April.
All right. Thank you.